Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, walking into your local grocery store, reaching for a gallon of milk. You tap your phone to pay. But instead of the familiar beep of approval, your screen flashes red. Transaction denied, not because you're out of money, not because your card expired, but because an algorithm, somewhere, decided you've already consumed your weekly dairy allowance. It sounds like science fiction, something borrowed from Orwell or Huxley, but the technology to make that scenario possible isn't being developed in some distant future. It's being researched, tested and debated right now by some of the most powerful financial institutions on the planet. This is not a story about cryptocurrency. It's not a debate about inflation or interest rates. It's about something far more fundamental: the definition of a dollar, and whether the money in your pocket will remain yours to spend freely or become a tool of quiet algorithmic control. For most of American history, money was simple, a neutral tool, a medium of exchange between two people free from interference. You work, you earn, you spend. That cycle, repeated billions of times a day, is the engine of the American economy. And at its core, it has always run on one principle: financial autonomy. Your money belongs to you. What you do with it is your business. When you hand cash to a street vendor, no one asks permission. When you swipe your card at a restaurant, no committee decides whether you deserve that meal. The transaction is between you and the seller. But here's something most people don't consider: that freedom isn't written into the Constitution. It isn't protected by any specific law. It exists largely because of the technical limitations of our current monetary system. Cash is anonymous. Bank transfers, while tracked, cannot be programmed to restrict specific purchases. The infrastructure simply doesn't allow for that level of granular control. The question worth asking, and the question at the heart of this story, is what happens when that infrastructure changes. In the city of Basel, Switzerland, tucked inside an elegant building overlooking the Rhine, sits an institution that most people have never heard of: the Bank for International Settlements. Founded in 1930, it functions as a coordinating body for the world's central banks, 63 of them representing economies that account for roughly 95% of global GDP. When the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, and others need to align on monetary strategy, the BIS is where that conversation happens. Since 2016, the BIS has been developing frameworks for something called a Central Bank Digital Currency, a CBDC. And it's here that a crucial distinction needs to be understood. A CBDC is not Bitcoin. It is not Ethereum. Those cryptocurrencies were designed philosophically and technically to operate outside government control, decentralized, pseudonymous, resistant to interference. A central bank digital currency is the opposite. It is issued and controlled by a government. Every transaction is recorded. Every dollar is, in technical terms, programmable. That word deserves a moment. When you hold a $20 bill, that paper carries no conditions. You can spend it on groceries, donate it to a cause, use it however you choose. The bill has no memory, no instructions, no restrictions. A programmable digital dollar is different in kind. It is software, and software can contain rules, conditions that execute automatically, without human review, without appeal. Central banking researchers have openly explored what those rules might look like. Some proposals are benign digital currencies that can be targeted precisely to low-income households, or stimulus funds that can only be spent at local businesses. Others raise harder questions. Could a government facing a climate emergency tie spending to carbon limits? Could expiring currency be used to force economic stimulus during a recession? These aren't accusations, they are documented possibilities, features discussed in white papers and academic literature. Whether they would ever be implemented depends on choices that haven't been made yet, but the technology to enable them is being built. The United States is not alone in facing these questions. In fact, in many respects, it's watching from behind. China launched its digital yuan pilot in 2020. By recent estimates, hundreds of millions of Chinese citizens have digital yuan wallets, with transactions totaling tens of billions of dollars. Researchers have noted that the digital yuan includes features allowing the government to set expiration dates on funds, a tool designed officially to encourage spending during economic slowdowns. Nigeria introduced the e-naira in 2021. The Bahamas launched the cent dollar. Jamaica introduced Jamdex. The Eastern Caribbean has Dcash. Sweden is testing the e-krona. Brazil is developing the digital real. India is piloting the digital rupee. More than 130 countries representing the vast majority of the global economy are now actively exploring central bank digital currencies, many of them in coordination with the BIS. The United States has moved more cautiously. The Federal Reserve released a discussion paper in 2022 exploring the concept of a digital dollar, but stopped well short of announcing plans to build one. Fed officials have repeatedly emphasized that any digital dollar would require explicit authorization from Congress. In 2025, an executive order was signed explicitly prohibiting the Federal Reserve from developing a retail CBDC without congressional approval. So where does America actually stand? The honest answer is in the middle of a genuine, unresolved debate, one that deserves far more public attention than it receives. The case for a digital dollar has real merit: faster payments, greater financial inclusion for the unbanked, more precise delivery of government aid, reduced costs for international transactions. But the concerns are equally real and they cut across the political spectrum. Privacy advocates worry about surveillance. A fully digital currency would give any government a complete, real-time picture of every transaction in the economy, every purchase, every donation, every transfer between family members. The implications for civil liberties are not theoretical, they are structural. The Canadian trucker protests of 2022 offer an instructive example. When the Canadian government invoked emergency powers to freeze the bank accounts of protesters and donors without criminal charges without trial, Canadians scrambled to withdraw cash by cryptocurrency, convert savings to gold. They were searching for somewhere the government couldn't reach. In a world where physical cash has been eliminated and cryptocurrency tightly regulated, that escape route may not exist. Whether that outcome would ever come to pass in a democratic society with constitutional protections is a fair debate. But the architecture of such a system once built creates a capability that didn't exist before. And capabilities historically tend to find uses. None of this is settled. The digital dollar, if it ever arrives, has not yet been designed. The decisions about what it can and cannot do, whether it protects privacy or erodes it, whether it expands freedom or constrains it, are decisions that haven't been made. That's precisely the point. The moment to shape those decisions is now, while the frameworks are still being written. Several bills have already been introduced in Congress to establish guardrails, banning surveillance features, prohibiting programmability that restricts purchases requiring any CBDC to preserve the anonymity of cash. Those efforts need public engagement. This isn't a question for central bankers alone. It isn't a question for technologists or economists. It's a question about what kind of relationship Americans want between themselves and their government, between their labor and their freedom. Money has always been more than a number. It's been a measure of independence, a store of future possibility, a quiet but fundamental form of autonomy. The question now, one that will be answered one way or another in legislative chambers and central bank boardrooms over the coming years, is whether the next evolution of money will serve the people who use it or the institutions that issue it.